Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Divided Films, the podcast where we talk about movies that audiences and critics do not agree on. With me, as always, is my co-host Keith.
Hello.
And returning to the podcast today, our dear old friend, Johnny Dellaluna. Welcome back, Johnny.
Hey. Thank you very much. Glad to be back.
So
very,
excited.
very happy. And you guys have been doing some great. I've been listening to all the episodes. So great work. A lot of movies I haven't seen personally. So now, I have my film taste has gone up.
Great.
And anyone who didn't like Last Jedi, you can just go off.
You know what? Actually, I wanted to bring this up. That's a real quick tidbit. This is the you bring up Last Jedi, and when we did the divide debate, I gave that a negative score. But since seeing The Last Skywalker, my opinion on that movie has changed, and I would actually bump up my score to a positive score. So we would wind up officially siding with, I think, the critics on that. It was the critics who liked it. No. It was the critics.
Yeah, no, I think it was the critics liked it. Yeah.
Okay, so this is like a divided films first, but we are going back on to previous results.
Wait, I want to say my piece too. This movie, Last Jedi, it made me appreciate with Rise of Skywalker and Knives Out coming out. It made me appreciate what Last Jedi tried to do, and I ended up giving like a 69. But with the Rise of Skywalker, I'll give the trilogy a rotten score.
The whole trilogy is a rotten, but that Last Jedi.
The whole trilogy is a rotten, but what Last Jedi tried to do, it made me appreciate Rian Johnson and its attempt, but the whole trilogy as itself is a failure.
So that's a divided films first,
cool.
Going back on a previous result. So the people who were there at the time, I know Andy and Dom were for that movie. They can they can feel rectified that their opinion has been validated. Push that off.
No one's fighting for Rise of Skywalker, right?
No
one's gonna be like, wait, well, that was a good movie.
That
movie sucked.
I think our friend
burn
Heather
that movie.
Tedesco, while she did like Last Jedi, or while she didn't like Last Jedi, she did like Rise of Skywalker. So maybe there is another divided debate where
she will stand alone on that one, and we will take her down. For all you guys out there, just as a reminder, Johnny also has his own podcast, a great podcast, yes. The Winning Ticket Podcast. And now that sports are finally returning, hopefully we can get more of his podcast back on the air. So I'm sure that's, a relief to everyone. We're going to get more sports, more Winning Ticket Podcast episodes.
Yes.
So today we are talking about our divided film today. The 1995 animated movie, A Goofy Movie, directed by Kevin Lima, and it's I'm not as familiar with the voice actors of this movie, but yeah.
Well, Jason Marsden voiced Max.
Okay.
He's been around the block, and that's when he was much younger, of course.
Okay.
And then
Bill
Farmer, of course.
Yeah.
He's
been around. Yeah. Okay. So
he's Disney legend. He's been doing voice, I think, since the 80s.
Jim Cummings.
Jim Cummings as well,
yep.
Who I want to get into later on. But okay.
That hot tub scene.
This movie falls into the category of having a rotten score with critics at 58% and a positive score from audiences. Sorry. Let me start that over. A rotten score with critics, 58%, and a positive score from audiences, 70%. So 12% divide, not huge, but still different sides of the aisle there. The critics' consensus for a Goofy movie offers enough of its titular ingredient to satisfy younger viewers, even if most parents will agree that this beloved character deserves better. So that is the critics' consensus. Johnny, you look like you have something to say. I mean, I can see that you're a fan of a Goofy movie. So what do you think about the divide here, and what would you say to the critics who are thumbs downing this?
I always have beef with any animated film review that has to point out, well, this part's for kids and this part's for adults. Obviously, a Goofy movie is not a Francis Ford Coppola work. We know who the audience is.
Sure.
But after watching the movie and seeing the relationship between Max and Goofy, and feeling the kind of the heart and soul of the film is what it means for a son to have a dad like him, and for a dad to have a son like him. When they say like, oh, the parents might be wanting more, it's a fucking Goofy movie. Like, what more did they not include that you could possibly be waiting for? And of course, it's going to be fun for young viewers. This was admittedly, so I'm very biased. This was the first movie I ever saw in theaters in 1995.
Okay.
I went with my dad, and we went with a friend and his dad. And I actually, it's like that like weird like snapshot memory. I remember the credits because they were like this yellow color, and we were approaching the screen, and I got to like touch. I don't know. It was like a weird like sensory memory. So naturally, for young kids like myself, like of course there was stuff in here. They're all Disney characters, but watching this movie countless times now that I'm older, there was so much stuff that I missed. And whenever critics try to draw that line, it just doesn't make sense to me, because I don't think that you should sacrifice a good movie, a good story, good characters just to quote unquote entertain the kids. You know?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So that's why I get really bugged when a movie that does really well at being for the whole family still gets this divide between them. So we're like divided in divided. Which is pissing me off.
I think, it's definitely fair. A family movie should be assessed as such. Like you shouldn't compare it to it's animated movies, family movies. Obviously it's not higher, but it's not supposed to be. It is supposed to be family entertainment with good stories. Maybe have some good lessons there. But Johnny, I feel like we might have a bit of a debate about this movie.
Oh boy,
because I am not that crazy about a Goofy movie. Admittedly,
ding, ding, ding.
So here we go. I will say this, in the consensus, it says that the titular character deserves better. And I think what that might mean, and the thing that I am kind of having a beef with this movie is, it's a Goofy movie. It's supposed to be, from what I understand, like a send-up, for this classic Disney character. But my problem is that Goofy is a secondary character in his own movie. This is more about Max than it is about Goofy. We're seeing it more from his perspective. There's more focus on Max than on Goofy. Even on the poster, Goofy's off to the side and Max is in the middle. So
you're right.
I kind of, I get that the heart of the story is this father-son relationship, but I just feel that you're seeing things more through Max's perspective than through Goofy's perspective. And for that, what that does for me is it kind of makes me annoyed with Goofy at times, and I feel like a Goofy movie, I should be loving this character constantly, but I feel embarrassed for Max at times. I feel frustrated towards Goofy because I'm seeing it through Max's perspective. And, I feel like Goofy doesn't really get enough focus in his own movie. And this was kind of something that I saw I've noticed in a couple other 90s movies about classic cartoon characters, like the Tom and Jerry movie, for example. Tom and Jerry are also secondary characters in their own movie. The Goofy movie's way better than that, but I'm just saying, as an example, this was like kind of like a weird mini trend where it's like, oh, here's a classic character, but it's really about something else. So that's my initial issue with a Goofy movie.
That's fair. That's fair.
What do you think, Keith?
You're wrong. No, no.
Thank you. Good night.
No. Actually, that's a pretty valid criticism. Yeah. This movie is probably like what makes me like a 90s kid. Like, I didn't see it in theaters, but I probably watched it a lot I remember the VHS tape vividly, and just putting it in the VHS rewinder. Yeah. And just watching it, it had a fantastic soundtrack, which we'll get into.
Yeah. Wait, real quick, Keith, do you remember there was the previews before the movie? There was a music video for this very obscure kids band. I forget what it was. I'm sure it's on YouTube, but like they sang this like song about like someone who was sick, and there was like a cure for a sickness. But like it was just like very wacky, very like guy was just like, I got ants in my pants, like it was. And it played every time. I swear, I'll have to find it for you guys.
I guarantee you, someone on the internet has that clip. Someone has it. It might be on YouTube somewhere, but if we request it to the we put it out there to the World Wide Web, someone will send us like, oh, I got it right here.
Johnny, I have a surprise for you. I was actually in that band. I played I played the triangle, and we went to the hospital to sing about, and like we just wanted to brighten these kids'
That's
days.
what kids want to hear about when they're sick is ants in the pants.
Well, one kid, that's what one kid said. That's what, like, I don't want to hear about this, and we're just like, this is our only song. But
Sorry, I just had to.
I do remember previews in front of. I don't remember. I remember VHSs doing their thing. I'm probably gonna have to go back. I'm probably gonna have to go into the depths of YouTube and find what you're looking for. But when
I like feel like I'm missing out because I did not grow up with a Goofy movie. However, I grew up with a lot of other great Disney movies and had the VHSs and totally remember, like that Disney VHS voice, like coming soon to a theater near you, coming soon to home video, and getting the little previews of other Disney movies in each VHS. That's all classic.
That's a lost art in a way now because everything's streaming now, so there's no need for those kinds of previews anymore.
No, unfortunately, I have a theory though. Just real quick, but the guy who did those voices for those Disney VHSs, I feel like I recognize his voice. I think he did the PATH train in New Jersey. Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
No way.
It sounds exactly the same. I have a theory. It's the same guy. It sounds exactly the same. So, I don't know. That's my little conspiracy theory.
Videos are dying out. Yeah, we need you for the PATH train now.
No.
So let's give you to the most miserable thing we could find.
Good work.
My theory is that it sounds like it is Donald Sutherland. I'm like, this guy, like Donald Sutherland's doing the voice of the PATH train. I thought about that many a time. But and also going back to VHSs, do you remember some that I know we're gonna get to the movie, but going some of them, like I remember the Men in Black VHS specifically going like, hey, stay tuned for the music video and behind the scenes. Like it was basically a DVD in a VHS form.
Yeah, some of these VHSs had like some special thing afterwards sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I think I had in the 101 Dalmatians there was like, behind the scenes after the movie or something. Like they all had these kind of special
I
little
love
tidbits.
those. Peter Pan had one too. It was a making of featurette, and I watched that a lot. It was cool.
Same.
But when we picked this movie, the kid in me, kind of like with Home Alone 2, the kid in me was like, this is gonna be so fun. You love this movie, and yes, I do. I disagree vehemently with the critics. I do think Goofy had a whole layer of development that we probably never seen before. Watching it now, 25 years later, there is a lot of jokes that I'm like, this. I'm actually like laughing out loud, like with the Bigfoot and the possums. And that being said, though, I totally get a lot of people going like, this is not people's favorite Disney movies. Like I could totally understand the criticisms. Yeah. I do think it's higher than a 70. In my personal opinion, it's just like the sad thing is, if I were to make a top 10 list with honorable mentions of people, if you were to ask anyone, list your favorite Disney movies with like 5 honorable mentions. Hey, if Disney movie makes the list, that's more power to it. But unfortunately, I think this is the definition of like underrated for me.
Yeah.
No, I think it's rated.
I think it's rated. Well, here, this is the frame where it was in, right? It came out in 95. So 94, you had The Lion King, which is still, many consider that maybe to be the best animated film of all time. Yeah. And then the year after that, I believe, was Hunchback of Notre Dame. And
Pocahontas.
Pocahontas, 95, Hunchback, 96.
Oh, that's right. That's right, 95. See, Pocahontas, I forget about Pocahontas a lot just because I just didn't think that movie was that great.
It's not.
It's not. So either way, you have those 3 films, right? And that is what Disney markets for. That's the theme parks. That gets like just everyone's watching those movies. And those movies, I mean, I don't like Pocahontas, but certainly Lion King and Hunchback are of like, obviously the scope and the breadth of those movies are much bigger.
Aladdin 93, just 2 years before.
Yeah,
this.
Right. Yeah. And
this
and
is the Disney Renaissance.
That's the Renaissance.
Exactly.
And those movies are better. Like no question. I'm not going to start being like, well, Goofy movie's better than The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
How dare you?
But what I love about a story like that is, so a lot of that animation went overseas. Obviously, a lot of the people on that film weren't working on those bigger movies. So in a way, they can maybe look up and say, this is what Disney is really focused on. We have something of a a throwaway quote unquote kind of movie here. They just want to market Goofy and put him in a movie. And what I'm astounded by is that it was so good considering those circumstances. They didn't just give up on the film. Maybe they used it as a feather in their cap and said, "Hey, we're actually going to make this. We're going to make this a slam dunk." And in some regard, I think compared to a movie like Pocahontas, I think a lot of '90s kids maybe remember a Goofy movie better, or even with more positivity.
Well, I would say
than
maybe
a movie like that.
I'd maybe argue Goofy movie is more fun than Pocahontas. And
For sure,
it's
yeah.
the same year, so maybe kids had more fun at the theater with a Goofy movie. I think, from what I understand, a Goofy movie was not made by the same major Disney studio that made the pantheon of Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King. I think this was maybe the TV studio that got a film budget. Because this is based on
Goof Troop.
TV show, Goof Troop. So that's what the setup is from. And, with this movie's animation, I feel like, for me, it's a bit inconsistent. There are some sequences where it looks fantastic. I think the car, can look really cool with the motion of it. There's some of that mix of, computer animation with, traditional animation. So sometimes it looks really good. Other times it seems a little choppy, or in today's light of big high definition TVs, and retouchings of movies, you can maybe see the smaller little things that you wouldn't have noticed back in 1995. But I could tell sometimes the animation, it looks like, I don't know, I want to say they were cutting corners, but it's, like I said, it's inconsistent. And Disney, even though this is not the main studio, Disney is known for top notch animation. So I don't know if you want to hold it to the same level as the big movies, considering this is a different, smaller studio. But in today's light, I just think that it's it's hit and miss for me, the quality of the animation.
I get that too. They're definitely, the inconsistencies are there. The budget was definitely small. We just talked about the other films that did get the budget, essentially. And it's weird because when you tell people to think of the Disney Renaissance films, this movie rarely comes up. But like Keith was saying, if you talk about, let's make a list of underrated Disney movies, this one's almost always there. Mm-hmm. So it's like where do we want to place this? And I think the animation style, it's suitable for a Goofy movie, right? I mean, could it have done with some extra polish, of course. What movie can't? But it's very colorful. It's very, the animation is very squash stretch, very wacky looking, and in a way, like these '90s movies, when they have animation glitches, it really sets it in the time. And this movie is so '90s, it makes your eyes fall out. So I feel like that just adds to the '90s lore.
Pauly Shore is in this movie. If you want to date
for Pauly Shore.
If you want to date this movie hardcore, Pauly Shore not only has a character with 10 lines, his character has an arc, kind of. His character has clothes. He gets a girl.
He does.
He gets a girl. He's introduced as I can hook you up, and he has a weird fascination with cheese. But this podcast should just be about Pauly Shore's character alone, just because I'm fascinated that if you want to date this movie, Pauly Shore was the comedy star in this time.
Unfortunately,
bad comedy movies, he was. Yeah. But yeah, this movie, Max is a '90s kid.
Yeah, oh, totally. I see the inclusion of Pauly Shore as such a commercial decision. He's really big right now with the youngins. Let's get him in there. I'm very thankful that his character is on screen minimally. He maybe has a little thing with the girl at the end, but just his very presence in the movie is enough for me to deduct points. I just, God, it's like nails on a chalkboard whenever I hear him speak. It's, I'm very anti Pauly Shore, in case it wasn't apparent.
Did you guys try to recreate the Leaning Tower of Cheesa at any point, and then stuff your face with it?
It sounds like you did.
I might have.
I always tried to find cheese like that. I'm where can you find
Yeah, we never really had Cheese Whiz. I never knew what that was.
But he's spraying cheese during like the final number, he's like spraying cheese at the party, and everyone's like, yeah, and I'm like, no, he would be kicked out.
I
Like,
think Cheese in this movie is like the kid-friendly version for drugs.
Oh yeah,
If he's like the guy who's like, I can hook you up, Cheese is like the kid version of like
that's the payment.
whatever drug you want to say.
He asks Max, like, comes with his backpack and goes, "Hey, need fundage, bro." And then Max like, "Shitter." So I don't like Pauly Shore either. I do like Bobby the character though, and I don't know how much different his persona is.
I feel like they pretty much took the Pauly Shore persona and made him into a cartoon, and of the time kind of thing. Very very trendy kind of touch to the movie.
Going somewhere, Pop?
Sure are. Hello, Rooney.
Cool. Have a good time, Dad. If you're going to be gone more than a month, drop me a line.
But Max, this isn't just my vacation. It's a vacation with me and my best buddy.
Oh, Donald Duck?
No, silly. With you.
Yeah, but it's totally of its time. I don't totally mind that.
Yeah.
Besides the Pauly Shore thing, I do like the Power Drive, right? Is that what the name?
Powerline.
Powerline.
I sound like an old man. Like, the Power Drive. Powerline. I like Powerline. I like his kind of like hybrid sort of thing of, as you put down. I mean, obviously Prince and Michael Jackson. I didn't realize also Bobby Brown is maybe an influence on this character. And he does have my favorite song in the movie, like Eye to Eye, right? Is that what it's called?
Eye to Eye. Yeah.
I think that's a catchy song. However, I think that's probably the only song I like in this movie. I don't really
Stand
like the other
out.
songs.
Stand out.
Stand out. Also a
Stand
Powerline
out.
number.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, stand out.
yeah.
That's true. But
I
the
didn't
actual
realize-
the musical numbers of this movie, I am not a fan of. There's like 3 or 4 of them, but I don't really find them that memorable or that catchy or that interesting. Like the opening number, it's the last day of school, da da da. I feel like it's so like a generic musical number. Like, we're kids in school and we want to go to summer break. Like, it's so generic to me, and I find that so frustrating because so many Disney movies have great, interesting, unique songs, and this one is like, I can't even remember how some of these songs go, even after just watching it.
I do know that song by heart, though. Like, but
Fair enough.
I want to say like that's fair, but like with mainly like Open Road and the song that he sings with his son, they I don't know, they are serviceable to me. But the power line, if someone hears that song, I also didn't know that the guy who sang it, Tevin Campbell, was like a real Grammy-winning like record star at the time. That was a fun fact when I learned that. But I think when someone hears that song, either of his songs, they go like, they know, memories come back to them, and that's probably what elevates this movie to a status, not like a golden status, but like that's why people remember this movie. Like it's a good soundtrack could save a good animated movie.
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island. That
Because it's terror time again.
but you know that
See,
like,
yep.
you know the lines. You know it comes back to you, and I think I just want to tell a bunch of '90s kids to this. I don't know. This movie ain't that bad, especially the soundtrack. This movie, the soundtrack.
See things eye to eye. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, the first bar is that dun, 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 dun. You're like, oh, here we go. It's like Larger Than Life by Backstreet Boys. You get that bam.
It's the only time someone has bum rushed a stage and they got to continue the number. The Powerline's like, the perfect catch. I'll do that. They would that's the only time. Can we just relish in that moment that no one, I think the bodyguard died. Rest in peace.
Was electrocuted to death.
I am curious though. How did they get? 1, to the concert because they lost the car, but 2, how did they sneak in? Because all of a sudden there's like this weird break in scenes, like after that song where they or after that scene where they save each other from the waterfall, and they're like, oh, we reconciled. All of a sudden it's like they just are in these instrument cases and they've been able to sneak into this concert. Like, wait a minute, how did you even get here?
JJ, we have 90 minutes. Fade-ins are
right.
keep it tight. They
And this
probably
movie's even shorter. This movie's, I think, only a little above. It's like an hour and 10.
it's
without
82
credits.
minutes. It's
Like,
82
it's just-
minutes.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's not. I think I'm thinking maybe there was like a deleted scene, and then they're like, you know what, this is just it's goofy.
Screw it.
It's running long.
Screw it,
You
they're
know?
there. They're at the concert.
Like they're there.
They snuck in.
They're in like the shape of the instruments. Goofy's
Yeah.
like sitting there like a cello shape and just falls over like that. That right there is like that's a Goofy movie. That's
Yeah.
I
He
bet
only
you said
does-
that.
He does the goofy laugh just once at the very end, right? And
Yeah.
not that like I need more of that, but it almost kind of was like, oh crap, we haven't done a single goofy laugh the whole movie. Quick, throw one in at the end.
Yeah.
Quick, have him fall through the roof, and he does the laugh. Like
Max
it kinda
does it
was
more.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
Max laughs a couple of times like him.
he does the like a couple.
Yeah.
I don't even know if Goofy does it. Only like Max does it.
I don't like. I think for fans of this movie, I think if with the people that grew up with this movie who did see it when they were 4 or 5 years old, I think our generation now is hitting their 30s, becoming parents. I think this movie does hit a little bit hard. This movie kind of flipped the switch for me in terms of viewing. Like, you know, Max has a fear of becoming his father. I'm starting to become my father. Like, I'm starting to become. I'm saving
Yep.
receipts for tax reasons now. No, but like, and my dad's not goofy, like in that sense. But this movie does hit emotionally for me. Like, or it does hit the emotional beats that I think it wanted to.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to, capture that, obviously, like, father-son magic that, a lot of people have. And, I like that, the fear of becoming your parents, in that opening sequence, it's like a zombie film,
Yeah.
which was fun. And it kind of, now, it kind of makes me think of those progressive commercials, where like, oh, like they bought a home and now they're turning into their parents, and they have all those
yeah.
like lame like parent sort of personalities, which like it's cute when Max is like laughing like Goofy and trying to hold it in,
Yeah.
like that's kind of sweet.
And we get it as the audience because Goofy is he's so like not lame in that kind of way, but no one wants to be Goofy. He's just one of a kind.
He's kind of lame.
No. But he may be lame, but on this time watching it, I'm like, he must get a lot of like girls. Like the mom was like, "Oh my God, you're so good with children." I bet Goofy is just like he's a single dad. Like I don't know. They never explore the reason why. Like
Well,
maybe that's on the show. I don't know.
Listen,
Maybe
we
get to
know-
watch it
they
and
never
find
do.
out.
We know that Goofy got at least one girl. So
That's a problem I have with the very premise of this movie and the show, that Goofy is a single father with a son, because it implies that Goofy has had sex at least once, and I refuse to acknowledge that. These are
Can you imagine-
asexual characters, and not even Mickey and Minnie I will acknowledge will ever be. Like, it's just, these are pure characters. Like,
Right.
he has a son. Like, ugh. Like, just the
They cut out-
implications.
they cut out
wanna
the scene where Goofy tells Max to always wear a condom.
I want to
Birds and the
see.
bees.
Like I like to think that Goofy's wife did not die. That they just had a Marriage Story-esque fallout where she's like, God damn it, Goofy! Like not everything's a joke. like
I just had two insane thoughts right now. One, Goofy giving Max the birds and the bees, but instead of like when a man loves a woman, it's like when a dog loves a bitch, because they're dogs. And then
you
the second thought I had is, what if like Goofy's wife was like a 90-day fiance? Just because I've been watching that show
my
a lot,
God.
and it just didn't work out, because those things never work out. But they did have a child, and she went back to whatever country she's from, and he kept Max. In
Can
the
you
US.
imagine Goofy just like every day I wake up I wish you're dead.
Oh, you're deported.
Like every day that Max is not going to be harmed by this, I just hope you're whipped by a butt. Like it's that same attitude. He punches a hole in the wall. Like it.
Goofy-
I
Like,
would like
Goofy
to add
reality
that
show.
to.
But he does-
Yeah.
he does find love in the sequel, I think, right?
Oh,
Yeah, he does.
extremely goofy.
To
movie.
disco.
Goofy movie.
To disco.
I think I might have seen an extremely goofy movie first. 'Cause
That
was
one we
on,
don't.
that went straight to straight to home video. It was on
Yeah.
TV, that kind of thing.
That movie was silly enough and not serious enough where that like should have been a goofy movie. Like that's what we were expecting, but then a goofy movie turned out to be so much better. So of course, naturally, they had to make a sequel that was shit.
Yeah, well, they make that like too kiddie, too like generic. It's not a bad idea to make a sequel, I guess, but this definitely
that one was a weird premise. Like now he follows Max back to college. Like
now it's like, all right, now you should cut the cord.
Yeah, right.
At this point,
it kind of reset the whole character arcs. Like
right.
And then they added
the same thing again.
A movie of the time. They added in like this whole skateboarding. Like, hey, Tony Hawk's the big thing.
Extreme
that was
sports.
Cringy.
Because the whole idea of this movie is, the character arcs. Like, Goofy has to learn how to accept that Max is getting older, but also like, how to balance it, how to maintain a father-son relationship while also acknowledging that he's becoming his own person with his own life. He has that line, which does resonate, like, I know you're your own person. I just want to be a part of your life.
That's a good line.
It's a very sweet line
that
I feel like a lot of parents can relate to. But then it seems like in the sequel, he kind of forgets that whole, thing. And it's like,
he goes to college.
Yeah.
I'm following you to college.
Yes! She said yes! Everybody mambo! It's not my break yet! Yeah! Dance with her! Groove with her! Miss Maple!
Get that boy's father on the phone at once!
Right away!
This to me seems like, the beginning, I get that like Goofy has to accept his son is getting older, but it just seems that in the beginning, Goofy doesn't know anything about his son. Like, the son gets in trouble once with that whole stunt he pulls at the assembly. And then, like the principal who's insane calls Goofy and it's like, he's going to wind up in the electric chair. Like the electric chair. This is the first time we're aware of that he's gotten in trouble. And now he's like in the electric chair. And then Goofy is like imagining Max in like prison uniform and like, oh man, like he's like, I'm trying to save you from the electric chair. And I'm like, you really think this dorky kid is gonna be like a murderer or something?
That principal really did Wallace Shawn like
Classic.
that. All Goofy and Max needed to do was actually have like a talk to each other, like, hey Dad, can we put off this vacation by like a week? There's a girl
one day
like
go tomorrow. But no, we're going now. You're not even packing.
It like I've read like fan theories on it. It stands to reason if Goofy never had that call at the principal, the movie wouldn't have happened. No, he wouldn't have been freaked out.
No, that call is kind of what sets the whole plot in motion, right? I can't get over how extreme it is. Like, does that principal tell every parent whose like kid gets in trouble, like he's gonna be executed one day if he keeps this up?
Right,
like,
and dark for a Disney film too. Like that is just straight. It's like our criminal system.
Not even like, oh, he's gonna be a delinquent. No, he's going to be put to death eventually. Like, okay.
Like, there are some dark points in the like. Also, is Pete a single father as well?
Yes.
I don't. In Goof Troop, they had a daughter.
A wife.
He had a wife and daughter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember the wife as much, but I remember the younger sister.
I guarantee you they got divorced.
That's
exactly what happened.
I don't think anyone could be married to Pete for very long.
Yeah.
This is Pete's like third wife. But that bit like Goofy is definitely a good father because PJ is the friend's name.
Yeah.
PJ is like, oh, my dad. If my dad finds out about this, he's going to wail. PJ is afraid of his father, and they do kind of like, my son respects me. They do kind of, I don't know. It's not like, I'm not saying Pete hits his kid, but
he might.
But it's definitely like, it's definitely implied that he is a strict father in that sense, like.
I see. It's funny because I want to talk about those scenes and that hot tub scene again, which is like so strange that's in a Goofy movie where they talk about their own parenting, like opinions and what they do, and they're sitting. It's a quiet scene. There's no one else around, and I think Goofy says, "Well, my Max loves me," and Pete goes, "Well, my son respects me."
That's right. Yeah.
And then Goofy is he's so fed up he just leaves, and it's like that could have been in like an Oscar movie, like that kind of clashing of philosophies.
I like that Goofy, like in that scene, is getting fed up with Pete, because it seems like you know, Goofy is like so naive all the time to people's intentions, and he's just so nice to everyone no matter how mean they are in return. And that's like finally a scene where Goofy is being skeptical of what someone else has to say, and is kind of like standing up for his own opinion. So I do like that. But of course,
and he.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say he doesn't, right. He's so used to getting walked on because he's such a jolly guy, and when Pete says my son respects me, like Goofy could look at him and be like, yeah, well, like almost like, well, I'm not that. I'm not you.
Yeah,
I'm not a perfect dad, but I'm not you, because what you do is wrong. And even on the way back to the room, he has that, like you said, that skepticism, because then he goes in the car and sees that the map was changed. So like that is such a pivotal moment where he questions everything at this point. He knows his son just is not giving him what he wants, and then when he trusts him later on in like a very unnecessarily, but I guess necessary, intense scene where he's like, all right, Max, left or right, and it's this belabored, like, Max knows to say.
It's a big, it's a
Goofy
very on the
literally
nose.
doesn't turn the wheel until he says it. So like, were they gonna crash?
Which way, Max? Which way? Left or right? But I kind of think that's funny too, because it's like, all right, Max, I trust whatever direction you're going, but the traffic signs clearly say, like west or north. Like you could probably deduce, like, wait a minute, like,
Right.
why would we have to go north? Like I know that much.
Also, like on the map, this is just how cartoony it is. Like one direction is California, and like one direction's Idaho. As if that's how that works.
The two places where it might as well have said where Goofy wants to go, where Max wants to go. Which way?
Exactly.
Which way are we going? It's kind of. It reminds me of this Rocko's Modern Life joke where he's like teaching Mrs. Wolf how to drive, and it goes, "Oh, here's my exit," and the exit is literally Rocco's house. It says it on the sign.
That's perfect.
It's very on the nose.
I found out this little tidbit. I wonder how this would have affected the movie, and it probably would have affected it in a negative way. First of all, this movie was inspired by Jeffrey Katzenberg. When they were trying to think of what the plot of this movie, Jeffrey Katzenberg did take a road trip with his, at the time, estranged daughter. Like it's definitely inspired, but Jeffrey Katzenberg did say, and they recorded it for a week and they realized it didn't work, that like Goofy should have a normal voice. And Bill Farmer was confused, but they recorded Goofy with a normal voice until they realized, like, no, this isn't working. Let's go back
insane.
to
the character is the voice.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I remember Bill
I
Farmer
want
saying
those
that,
recorded.
yeah.
I want those recordings of just like, Max, we need to talk. Ha 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 ha.
That would be so weird. The character is the voice. Like if you do an impression of Goofy without even saying, okay, I'm just doing a voice and it's Goofy's voice, people recognize that.
Hi,
like, why would
I'm
you take
Goofy.
that away?
Right.
That's so crazy to me. So yeah,
I'm
good thing they did not make that decision.
Good thing. It's
My
funny, too, 'cause
name is Goofy.
Bill Farmer's, Bill Farmer's voice. If you just hear his speaking voice, he's from Kansas, so he does have a southern twang. So like, if you like, close your eyes and think, you're like, oh yeah, I could see him being the guy who does Goofy. But I doubt that they even wanted him to have that any kind of intonation whatsoever. I remember Bill was saying that, and I'm thinking to myself too, like, what? It's like you're doing a Mickey movie, and you're like, yeah, just have him like be like a mouse.
Yeah, that kind of takes away the whole appeal of the character.
At first, I can kind of get it, just because like this movie does go, like emotionally, it does go there, and you're like, but like it is a kids movie, and people are there to see Goofy. They don't want to be like, "Hello, my name is Goofy. I'm the character you know and love." Ha 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 ha.
They might have been fearful that maybe the more emotional places wouldn't resonate because it was coming from Goofy. But then, as we've seen in this movie, and as in any project like this, like then you hire a good actor. That's what it is. The actor has to make it. And Bill Farmer, that's why I love the voices in this movie. Are like, oh my god, and it's really for a lot of these guys, it's at the height of their Disney powers. This was when a lot of like the directed home like stuff was coming out. I know like later on that there was like the like Mickey Mouse Works and House of Mouse. So like all these classic characters were very much in the forefront, and everyone was doing their thing, and they were younger. You know,
I totally forgot about the cameo by Donald Duck and Mickey. That was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
That was a nice surprise.
That's I like that.
And I love the one joke where Goofy goes, I'm going on a road trip with my best bud. And Max goes, Donald Duck. Which was so true. They had a lot of cartoons when they were young, you know, back in the early days where they would do a lot of stuff together. So it's like a good joke because everyone knows Donald Duck, but also a reference to Disney history.
Think, like the jokes in this, one thing that will always make me laugh is broken toys, animatronics. That possum scene actually, like,
oh my god,
that put a smile. I'm actually legit laughing out loud. And Bigfoot. I think the jokes in this are maybe not all of them land, but it's very well written movie.
Got us a seat right up front.
Let me introduce you to the posse. Here's Buford, Beulah, and Mordecai.
Hey, Lester, ready for yodeling?
Sure am, Buford.
Now gather round, my possum pals. Join the jamboree. Come hoot and howl and holler from the heart. And every
This is pathetic.
It's a hilarious scene. So I remember when I was younger, the big joke of that was that little girl with like that big smile and like the missing teeth. That was hysterical. Now that I'm older, it works on multiple layers. First, it like parodies Disney's own ride system, and this ride is like it's in horrible condition. The guy
has to like hit it, you know, with his elbow, you know.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey there, folks," and he's like so disinterested. And then on top of it all, I feel the comedy and how Max is so embarrassed because like now he's sitting with his dad who's way too into it, and he's past that age.
But that to me, I was getting so frustrated with the Goofy character because he is so unaware of how his son is feeling in that scene, and causing even further embarrassment for him, you know, like when they're dancing and stuff. And like, it's so clear that Max is embarrassed and not having fun at this like kiddie place. So even the idea of taking him to like a kiddie place, he's like a teenager. I get the idea, like, you know, this is before Goofy's really getting to know his son. But in that moment, I was like, God damn it, Goofy, like, you're so embarrassing. And I'm like, come on, I shouldn't be like frustrated with the character. I should be enjoying every scene with him. And this is like a moment where I'm like, damn it, like I don't like this character in this moment.
He learns though. He learns, you know, and that was an interesting moment of contention, I think, for that spot in the movie, because right after that, so when Max throws the hat out, he yells at his dad, and then Goofy very sullenly drives away. So he like, it registers, and I'm thinking that's probably the moment where Goofy realizes he's not my little kid anymore. And that's further. Oh my God, this is a scene that admittedly I've seen this movie so many times since, but like one of the first times I watched it after I was a kid was the Bigfoot scene, and when they have, I see Keith here laughing, I love Bigfoot. It was the Hi Dad soup. That brought a tear to my eye. That's a great scene. That particular moment and that scene for me is what elevated the movie, because you got, aside from the the wacky fact that they're like being surrounded by Bigfoot and he's listening to the Bee Gees in the background,
him doing Staying Alive, like him just popping in the background. That's another like laugh out loud moment for me. I'm like, that's such a well written.
Yeah, it was in background, and then when he first puts it on and he's doing his finger and he does like the shoulders, that's funny. That's like just like legit funny. That's like not intended for kids or parents. Like that is just funny in general.
And the choice of music, the Bee Gees, like I think that's
right.
Like that's something parents will get, because kids aren't going to know that song.
Right?
Is he still there?
Yeah. When he has the sock puppets, that's funny. And then, so when they're talking about, so at this point, Goofy knows he doesn't have a little boy anymore, and when they're talking about what he used to spell in his alphabet can, and then he says, they're going back, and Max is kind of being like bratty with him. He's like, I pledge allegiance, and all these like long words that he wouldn't spell in the can, and he's kind of like trolling Goofy a little bit. Then Goofy says, or I love you, and he actually cuts himself off because he realizes, you know what, Max probably won't say that kind of thing anymore. And that is so, that, like I said, it made me cry one of the times that I saw it, because that hurts. That hurts a lot. And it's also Goofy misunderstanding that even though his son's getting older, doesn't mean he doesn't love him anymore. But at that moment, that's how Goofy feels. He feels that he's not loved, and he feels that he can't even count on his son to show him any love because he's not a boy anymore.
Well, the fact that it is in Goofy's voice that we recognize, and he's having these heartfelt moments, I think, it works because, it hits home more because we're only used to Goofy being happy and go lucky. So when he is genuinely sad and having emotions we can connect to, I think that hits home more, because it's like you never hear Goofy being sad before. Now you're hearing Goofy being sad, and it hurts. You can recognize that.
And the music, we talked a little bit about the score, Keith. Aside from the songs, that the music, really there's like a little, like, I think it's like a clarinet or something, like a line that just kind of plays, that just kind of shows what Goofy's feeling in his heart, and then the music swells later on when Max does wind up spelling something out. And this is what's brilliant about it. It very could have been like pandering, and he could have spelled out "I love you," but instead he spells out "Hi, Dad," because that's what he used to, and like that. And then Goofy starts tearing up, and I'm like, this is too good. This was way better than anyone intended it to be, and it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah,
to
there's
add to your
definitely
point,
more heart in it than probably was initially even like intended.
Yeah.
Like it would be easy to make like a throwaway Goofy movie where it's like a nonsensical plot and everything.
Yeah.
To add to your point, Johnny.
It's relatable. It's a relatable situation.
To add to your point, Johnny. I think this is the first time that I really listened to their song, like Nobody Else But You. I think as a kid I just like, all right, let's get to the power line.
Right, yeah.
And with everything that you said of just peeling back the layers of Goofy as a character and a father, this song used to be a throwaway for me, and now it's just like it just hit a little bit hard, and I'm like, oh, if and when I do become a father, like it's like I'm thinking about my relationship with my dad. I hope I don't know, it's just nobody else but you is there. Like as goofy as goofy as he gets, he's always there for Max through the good times and the times when he's going to go to the electric chair. Like
You never question that either. I think that's why it works so well, is because Goofy loves his son unconditionally, as any parent should. And we don't get that maybe when we're little kids watching this, but now watching, and none of us are parents yet, but, we will be. And just seeing that, like, you totally get it. He will do anything for his son. And then this song, and like, Nobody Else But You, just on the surface, is like, is that a love song? That sounds like what, partners would say to each other. But it works. It works so well on it's their climactic coming back together, because then everything's resolved after that.
I may not get your music, I may not get your emotions, but I'm there for you. God, even talking about it, it's just like, oh yeah, I think the '90s kids are hitting their late 20s, 30s. Yeah. And I think going back to our old movies now, to me, a Goofy movie is underrated.
Yeah.
Hands down.
I think, Keith, too, there's it's 2020. I think we live in a world of fabrication. People don't trust each other. There's fake news. There's everything's political. Even things that are morally and scientifically right and wrong becomes political, right? And I think when we look back at the 90s and then at a movie like this, I think there's just genuine feeling in it. And I think we all kind of want that again. We just want something to be genuine. We don't want marketing and ads that are constantly begging us to give attention. We don't want people being fake and just requiring our time and energy. And we look back on a movie like this, where it really is a simple movie about a dad trying to reconnect with his son. And I think I think that should be the trend. I think more movies, more stories should return to this simplicity, and just kind of hit those right notes correctly. Because this movie it does it in such a, it's like an admirably simple way. It's like you don't have to. It's such a short film, but it hits all those notes. I think I want to see more stories like that.
Well, to add, especially animated movies. But to add to your point, for those who don't really know me, I like to write, and my philosophy that it hit me in college. I think just our friend group, we on like the days that we're not doing anything, we would go around Netflix and just put on a movie and kind of like Mystery Science Theater it, whether it be usually it would be a bad movie, but then it'd be like a weird animated movie. And I remember one of our friends was watching like Barbie or Bratz or just one of these like animated movies straight to DVD, straight to Netflix. And she's had many adventures, and it was just so poorly written. It was just like not even by the numbers. It was just like, kids are going to watch this anyway. Let their minds melt for an hour and a half, less than that. And it hit me in that moment. I'm like, you're given a job as a writer, and it may not be the job that you want, but damn it, like the fact that we're like, that people are still talking about a Goofy movie when it did celebrate its 15th anniversary. It celebrated at I think the Disney convention when they unveil a lot of stuff, and Tevin Campbell sang out the cat.
Well, now it's 25th, right? It did celebrate 15th, and now it's 25
oh,
years.
No, not the 15th anniversary. When it did its 20th anniversary, it did that. But the fact that a movie is having its anniversary and people are celebrating it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's the same thing with like Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island. Like that movie went straight to VHS. People, I don't know. It helps to give a shit because that does hit kids. It affects kids when they're young, and it wraps around again when they're older.
Yeah.
Like they go back to it, and not just for podcast reasons. They do. They do. Like, when people, whether it's the soundtrack, the emotional beats, the jokes, I don't know. It's I can feel my score for this movie rising the more I'm talking about it. I don't know.
I agree with you.
Don't tell me you don't remember Hi Dad's soup. Oh, come on. Sure you do. You used to spell things out using the letters like Hi Dad or Maxie or...
Ambidextrous?
Yeah, that's... Huh? No. Little words like...
Hasta la vista?
Like bye-bye.
Or I pledge allegiance.
Or I love you.
Is it soup yet?
It's okay to be goofy. That's what, like, always, like, Goofy walked so Phil Dunphy could run.
It does sound bizarre in concept that a movie where you saddle Goofy of all Disney characters with a son, after Mickey's had nephews, Donald's had nephews, and like this is the character you're choosing to make a parent, and it works.
Yeah,
and it works really well.
I guess this is based off of the show, right? We said Goof Troop, and I totally buy the teenage character, and I like how they shaped him to be like a weird mix of like an actual teenager and like a Goofy. You could tell he's Goofy's son. Yeah, but he's still like a teenager. I had one weird thing though with this world that we're living in. It seems that everyone in this town is like a dog-based character, but we do see Mickey and Donald Duck at one point. So I'm just thinking, like, do all the species live in like different parts of the world? I don't know. A weird thought came into my head about that. Like, they're all like.
For that reason,
I was
0%.
Totally taken out of it for that. I was thinking to myself, like, why? Why not animate all different kinds of animal-based, characters in this? Since we know like there's mouse and duck, we're only getting dog for some reason.
Yeah, and there's like birds. I know Max at one point like steps into a flock of birds that are not
actual birds,
sentient. As far as I know, they don't. Yeah, like they don't talk. They're bird-sized. He doesn't.
Can you imagine?
For what it's worth, he doesn't grab one.
There was that weird thing people always bring up, which is like Goofy's a dog that is like a person. Then there's also Pluto, the dog that's just a dog.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like it's so weird.
Goofy has feelings about that.
It could be like a Zootopia thing, you know, where like
Pluto, who's owned by a life-size mouse.
Seems like
too.
the hierarchy
Like,
of the animal
really
kingdom is thrown
strange.
out of whack by that.
Yeah.
Like Pluto has had the discussion with Goofy. He's like, this is just my thing. I'm into what I'm into, and I like being. It goes there. Disney has gone there.
What I think is kind of interesting. I want to ask this of you guys. This movie has, I think, to a lot of people, and certainly to the filmmakers too, they were surprised how well this has endured. And with the renaissance of Disney being what it is, those movies seem like they'll never die. I mean, they just remade, Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. Like, those movies are just going to be reinvented somehow.
Are you saying live-action Goofy movie?
Oh
my God, that'd be so
I really
disturbing.
wasn't, but I don't want people to think that.
That's
no
so funny.
fucking way.
That wouldn't make any sense.
I don't
But then
want
again,
that
I didn't think a Lion King live action would make any sense, and they made
No.
that. So who knows?
God,
I know.
that wasn't even
Did you
live
guys
action.
like
it was
that,
all
by the way?
animated.
Sorry,
This
a little
is crazy.
tangent there, but
But
I couldn't
No,
watch
that's
more than
okay.
5
I-
minutes of
I
it. It was
didn't.
so strange to me.
the whole time, JJ, I was just sitting there going, there is a better version of this movie that I have seen and I own, and I've paid
I'd rather
money
be
to
watching.
See. Yeah, and I'd rather be and I've seen the Broadway show too. So now there's actually two versions that are better than what I'm currently watching, and like
Yeah,
I felt like
absolutely.
an idiot the whole time.
Yeah, but with this, watching a Goofy movie as an adult,
Yeah.
I did feel a little silly. Like, what am I doing? I'm a grown man, and I'm watching a movie clearly geared for children. And I do enjoy a lot of
Families,
Disney
JJ,
movies.
families.
All right, fair enough. Although I do think sometimes the humor is usually geared more towards younger kids than I feel there is stuff there for adults too, but I think sometimes this movie borders on being too kiddie and not enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
I think maybe I could see parents in the theater being kind of bored at times with this.
All right.
I could, I did say to myself, I'm like, if I didn't have a podcast, I probably wouldn't be watching this movie. I think the next time I do watch this movie, I hope to have like a son
Yeah.
or daughter.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to throw that.
Right.
I hope to watch it with like a family. But
Yeah.
I could get that.
Yeah, what I was kind of leading into was, since those other Disney movies clearly have a place in our culture and our history, like, where do you think a movie like this is going to land? If it's celebrated a 25th anniversary, are we seeing a movie that's going to celebrate a 30th and a 35th? Like, is this going to endure? Do you guys think?
As a cult.
I think this movie, yeah, it has a cult following,
Okay.
and also I think this movie is appreciated by like millennial hipsters. I think this is the kind of thing where like someone will dress up as like like Powerline, at like a costume party or something. I think it's like a deep pull that the internet likes this movie, and people will have fond memories of. So it'll be kept alive in like more of a niche sort of way. I don't think it's going to maintain like a super broad appeal that maybe it had at the beginning. But for kids who grew up with it, I think that they'll keep it alive and continue to celebrate it.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I do agree with you, JJ. That being said, I do think there are people that really enjoy it, but I don't think it's hard to hate this movie. It's hard to say this is a bad movie. I think
I wouldn't say it's bad, but I would say it's like bordering average.
Okay, no,
I just think, even though I like a lot of the things they're trying to do with it, and you're right, it is a lot better than it could have been, I do think that like it is somewhat of a generic story. I've seen lots of like family comedies of like road trips gone awry, and I just don't like seeing cliche familiar stories from a studio that like is supposed to be pushing the boundary for animation. Yeah. So I think like if this if you took this story, if someone told me that a Goofy movie was originally written as just a generic movie and then they slapped in like, oh, let's change the characters to Goofy and Max, I would buy that.
Well, I guess the question, the director Kevin Lima, who has gone on, he was always an employee at Disney, and he went on to do Tarzan, 102 Dalmatians, and
that sucks.
But then again, he
God.
did Enchanted, which
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
he's co-directed a bunch of other stuff. Like this
Sure.
is definitely Disney in-house, but he wanted to make a John Hughes film. I guess the question is, did he succeed in doing that? And I'm gonna say possibly yes. Like there is.
There's elements, yeah.
Speak
There's
your
elements.
speak your piece.
Well, there's like different eras of John Hughes. So if he's trying to capture like, I don't know, there's the coming of age element for Max. So I guess there is that. John Hughes though, I feel like so many of his movies have like these like they don't develop the parents really. It's usually developing like the kids more than the parents.
The parents are basically non-existent in John Hughes movies, like
In a lot of his movies, yeah. So
and
I
there's
think
mansions.
It's interesting, maybe inspiration to pull from, but I'm not really getting that.
It's hard to say too because Goofy is such an established character that we all kind of know who Goofy is. Like no one's gonna discover and be like, oh well, who's this mild-mannered, little bit silly father figure? It's more just like, okay, this is Goofy. What's he gonna get into?
Right.
So it's hard. It even is hard to really grade on that merit too. It almost feels like a sequel of sorts.
Well, they kind of get like, you get kind of things you would look forward to in the montage scene, like when they're really going over the place, like, oh, Goofy water skiing, like Goofy getting sick on a roller coaster. Like that's some fun stuff you would, I guess, hope to see. Although like I was interested in seeing how much ground they covered in this trip. I mean, like it seems like they're in Miami, then they're in like New Orleans.
They drive on the map. They're like going like loop-de-loops. Like what? Like what is this?
They make many laps of the entire continental United States, which is impressive considering. I think they said it's supposed to be like a 2-week trip or something.
Yeah.
So like that I got a kick out of that. They travel by map essentially. Okay, so. I feel like I am like the odd man out when it comes to.
I'm curious, JJ.
Movie.
You saw it for the first time when?
Maybe when I was like 11 or 12.
Okay.
Like I'm pretty sure like one of my older cousins had the VHS. And,
Okay.
Like was a big fan, and I might have watched it with them once or twice. I was like aware of it, but I just never. I didn't. It wasn't a household staple for me.
Sure. Okay. I'm just curious. You were Max's age essentially. I'd say he's probably around the same.
And I was like,
age.
this is lame.
Yeah, I was
I want to go to a concert and with my friends.
Were you too cool for this movie? Did you put on your sunglasses and go like, I'm out of here?
I was like, trying to be the cool kid, but I was probably closer to PJ than anything else.
I think we're all PJ. PJ was definitely just the kid who was afraid of everything, didn't want to get in trouble, had a cooler friend.
Yeah, kind of lives vicariously through his like much more interesting friends.
As long as we're not the Pauly Shore character, I'm.
Yeah, right.
God forbid.
Yeah.
But as I'm like wary, I will say, I think we might be able to give our own assessment on this movie now, like our own like personal scores. If there's nothing else we want to cover about this movie, I mean, like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be the odd man out. But Johnny, if you want to start us off, what score would you give the Goofy movie?
I very clear that I love this movie. I've grown up with it. I've tried not to be hitten too much by the nostalgia bug, but it's hard to, of course.
Sure.
It's weird because I think of another movie I equate, and then I'll give my score, in a weird way, is Space Jam, because that movie is so beloved by people our age.
Yes.
But whereas Space Jam, I could say, because I've watched Space Jam, of course, since, and you watch and you're like, this is fun, but like I could see why people don't really like this movie.
Yeah.
This is a Goofy movie is a movie where I've watched and I've convinced myself and I've learned through multiple viewings that like this is why this works so well. And like if I were to write a movie, I would want to base it on the charm, the simplicity, and the relationships. So I really love this movie. I think I would definitely skew more towards what the critics were giving it. I'd probably give it a 78%. 78.
Ooh. Oh, okay. And to be fair, I think this movie has a lot more heart than Space Jam.
Yeah, right.
A year later.
Exactly. It's just like the same era.
It is. I think Space Jam was 96. And if you look at Space Jam, that movie is kind of one giant commercial. With a lot of green screen. And then, as much as I'm not a huge fan of a Goofy movie, of a Goofy movie, it is, it does have heart and I think
it's
better
like
intentions.
It's like a good movie. It's got the right arcs. Like Space Jam has, there's really no one develops, no one learns anything.
Space Jam is incomprehensible sometimes. Where this is a pretty easy narrative to follow.
Right.
Okay, so 78 from Johnny. What about you, Keith?
You know, I think what Johnny kind of laid out is why the people who love this movie really do love this movie. It's not a movie I just put on randomly. It's a movie that I would like to watch with my family like, you know, if I could just show my kids one day this movie once and they like it, I would consider that a success. If we can go back to it, that adds more to it. I'm definitely leaning towards the positive side. I think the audience, I kind of liked it a little bit more than the audiences, because I think what this movie attempts to do, there's more positives than negatives to it. And Johnny, you took my score. I'm going to give it a 78 too.
Nice. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Very good. Yeah, so... Yeah. Like,
Jay's like, well, it's not going to be a 78 for me.
No,
it will be lower.
This is how I felt for Hook, by the way, and people still give me shit for that. I'm like, I'm standing by my Hook score.
Well, you know, it's my turn now to get some flack. Okay, so
we all have to go through it.
I guess it's tougher for me because I didn't grow up with this movie, so I don't have that nostalgia bug. And yeah, I do try to see the value in it, like why so many people love it, but you know, I don't want to be like one of those like old mean critics about it either, you know, like goofy movie. No, it's not. But I do feel overall that this movie is fine. And, you know, maybe for like any other movie that's okay, but for usually when there's the Disney title over it, I expect more than fine. So I'm going to have to give this a 66%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
that was higher than I thought you were going to give it.
I'm not going to give it a rotten because it is, once again, it's fine. It's a passable movie for me. It's just like not doing anything like that. I want more out of my Disney movies, basically, than a Goofy movie.
JJ, when I was looking at the critic, like their analysis of it, I think you are more in line. One of the few positives given to this movie was by our dear old friend Roger Ebert. And to sum up his review, let's round it off to 3 and call it a day. That's basically your viewpoint. Like,
yeah, I feel like a guy like Roger Ebert is probably like, you know, let's not spend too much time on this. It's fine and move on. You know, like they probably didn't dedicate too much airtime on the Siskel and Ebert show for that one. You know,
a goofy movie.
I get it.
But our totals combined come out to 74.
Okay, so it overall higher than even the audience score, so that's fair. So, Johnny, you are a man of the people because for the second time that you're on, we are officially siding with the audience.
Woo! I'm so uncultured. I just find what people like, and I like them too.
We'll find one. We'll find one that like you'll side with the critics over the audience for. We'll find which one that is.
I would have done Last Jedi. That's one I could absolutely agree with.
We're gonna find a movie where you say to us like, I don't even know who you guys are anymore.
I'm interested in finding a movie. I want to find a movie that you also strongly dislike because I've heard you talk about movies negatively and it's so funny. So we've talked about 2 movies that you really like, and next we'll look for one that will maybe have fun kind of bashing a bit.
I love that. I'm curious what you guys would have thought of Disney's A Movie before Goofy's name smacks into it. Like, what was that? What would that have been about?
Just a movie. I tell you, that was before they turned it. If like I said, if you said that this was just a generic script and they're like, oh, this is good, just turn the characters into Goofy and Max. That's a movie.
The moment. Boom.
A movie. No, a Goofy movie.
A silly movie, a wacky movie. Why don't we just throw Goofy in it?
A crazy movie. No, just Goofy. Goofy enough. So, thanks, Johnny,
that's a good name for a sequel. Goofy enough.
Goofy.
Well, you know, they should have called the sequel. They should have called the sequel a goofier movie.
Yeah, right. Like, they totally missed it. They literally they had to pander to like that era, an extreme, you know, X.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, now extreme, the X Games.
If they ever want to do another movie, the goofiest movie.
Yeah.
Oh, and I wanted to bring this up. Before we got on with you, Johnny, we talked. We had Eric on to talk about Mean Girls, and the sequel to Mean Girls shouldn't have been called Meaner Girls.
Yeah.
And, like, come on, that was just Mean Girls too. I feel like I want to come up with a podcast of better sequel names.
Let's do it.
Well,
but until then, thank you, Johnny, for coming back.
Yes, thank you.
Podcast, talk about a goofy movie, and it was a lot of fun. And stay safe, and we'll get you back on hopefully again.
Yeah.
And I want to see the darker side of Johnny. I want to see some nastier opinions
All right.
coming from
They're
you.
coming at you.
We'll do it. But until then, guys, thanks for listening, and join us again next time for another Divided Film.